Gaming handhelds have come a long way in the last 10 to 15 years. Anymore, they're just small gaming PCs with built-in controllers. But the Lenovo LEGION Go, well, Lenovo decided to take it a step further.
Got a Jody spinning, got the gator spinning, I'm outrageous with it, going crazy with it, got the page gifted, got the waves swishing, got the neighbors tripping, got for no license, gas load, the windows tinted, still couldn't see me with the zoom on your little vision. Nah, we are not the same, we got different lenses, no one snapping like.
What is up, guys? My name is Tyler, and today we're talking about the Lenovo LEGION Go. Yet another Windows gaming handheld, this time from Lenovo, who, might I add, have been quietly making a name for themselves in the gaming space with their slick Legion brand. Now, I can't say I've used any of their Legion products, but I do have the Go. And well, while the Go is certainly the most unique Windows handheld I've seen so far, I think it might be a little ahead of its time. But let me explain. So the Lenovo LEGION Go is, as I mentioned, a Windows 11 gaming PC in the form of a handheld. It has an 8.8-inch 2560 by 1600 display that is the highest resolution I've seen on a handheld with a smooth 144Hz refresh rate. It sadly doesn't support variable refresh rate like some others, but its sheer size alone demands attention when compared to other handhelds. The Go is powered by the same AMD Z1 Extreme chip that I loved in the ROG Ally, making the Go one of the most powerful handhelds, especially when compared to the Steam Deck. And while all that is fine and dandy, it's the unique approach to a handheld that really makes the Go stand out to me. Unlike every other slab of a handheld out there, Lenovo decided to take a risk. A big one, if you ask me. The Go doesn't just have buttons, and trust me, there's a lot of them. No, the Go's buttons are attached to controllers, actual controllers, ones that can be removed from the Go entirely. Look familiar? Oh, and it has a built-in kickstand that could probably hold the weight of every other handheld on its back without breaking a sweat. What have Lenovo created here? Because what I see before me isn't just a handheld. The Lenovo Go is more of an entertainment system. And sure, you could argue that any handheld is an entertainment system. Hell, jingling keys could be considered an entertainment system. But what I'm getting at is that the Go maybe wasn't actually meant for you to hold as much as it was meant for you to set up in a room, like a console or even a desktop. Okay, so let's back up a bit. I am well known for saying Windows handhelds are not consoles. And the Go is no different from a software standpoint. But from a design and hardware standpoint, I think Lenovo may have been onto something here. And before we get into the actual review part here, I want to note that Windows 11 is the worst feature on any handheld, period. So before I sound like a cranky old man complaining about how updates this, software that, I want to be sure I review the Go from an overall design package. The Lenovo Go can be broken down into a few simple yet complicated parts. So for this review, I'll try and break it up by talking about each component before sharing my overall thoughts on it as a complete package. That being said, let's start with the TrueStrike controllers. The TrueStrike controllers are what flank both sides of the central unit of the Go. They're made from plastic and are home to what feels like millions of buttons. They detach from the Go via a little button on either side, and the mechanism for attaching and detaching them, in my opinion, is a bit rough. It could use a little work. Not nearly as sexy as sliding off a Joy-Con on a Switch, not to mention you don't get a cool sound when you attach them, but it'll do. The left controller is pretty much your standard game controller. It does have two mappable buttons on the bottom, but to be honest, they feel pretty hollow and unsatisfying, and I never used them. More than anything, they just served as more buttons for me to accidentally click, a theme you'll notice throughout this review. The triggers in general are fine. They're definitely large, but feel a bit flappy. There's no dampening inside, so they feel pretty linear and, again, hollow. Speaking of hollow, the whole controller feels like an oversized, cheap Chinese Joy-Con knockoff. The rumble sucks, even at max strength, and it just doesn't feel premium at all. Nothing about this controller feels premium, for that matter. Okay, I take it back. The thumbsticks are pretty solid. Probably the best part of the controllers, in my opinion. But it's the right controller that's the real magic for the Go. The right side controller houses all the same buttons as the left side, except you get a bit more. In addition to two more underside mappable buttons that are in different spots, by the way, you also get two additional shoulder/side buttons. Well, these are in a weird spot, huh? Well, that's because the right controller also has an optical sensor on the bottom. You know, like a mouse. And that's where this silly piece of plastic comes into play. no pun intended. This is FPS mode, or so that's what Lenovo calls it. You basically hold your controller in the most unnatural way possible, drop it into this plastic holder, and use it like a vertical mouse to play FPS games. Now, I'll admit, when I saw this initially, I was like, that's kind of cool. Then I thought about it, and then I used it. And, well, let's just say it didn't get any better. While the idea is unique and when set up right does work, it's far from being a feature I would actually want to use. I mean, in order to use it, I have to carry this stupid plastic holder, and I have to be somewhere where I can set up the Go on a table, and if I'm gonna go through all that, I'd rather just play on my desktop. And I know what you're thinking, but what if I don't have a desktop? And to that I say, use a regular mouse and probably a keyboard, which if you're buying this in place of a desktop, you should definitely already have so. Again, I have to give Lenovo credit where credit is due. FPS mode is very cool, but it's not practical, and it's certainly not convenient, or at least not in the way they market it to be. But hey, let me know in the comments if you think using FPS mode is easier than just bringing a mouse with you. Or heck, do you even see yourself using it? Because I certainly don't. And I didn't, ever. You also get this tiny trackpad, which I will admit makes navigating Windows a bit more tolerable, but it's not great. It doesn't click or move like the ones on the Steam Deck, so needless to say, I'm not a fan. I'm not really a fan of anything on these controllers. The face buttons are fine, the shoulder buttons are fine, but overall these True Strike controllers are probably the worst part of the Go in my opinion, and that's a shame because they're what give the Go its identity. Honestly, if Lenovo were just to refine these controllers, make them way more premium feeling and better laid out, maybe kill the FPS mode, I think they could be onto something, because personally, using the controllers while the Go is on a table is totally usable and something I actually see people using, much like the Switch. You may not be able to do two-player local gaming, though I'm sure someone has found a way. They do surprisingly stay connected to the main unit without any hassle, something I overlooked initially because it's just that good. Probably the strongest thing they have going for them. Outside that, there's nothing truly striking about them. So the controllers are a bit of a letdown. What about the central unit? Honestly, the main unit is pretty awesome. Again, Windows 11 bullshit aside, the Go's main unit is very premium looking and feeling. It's made from all aluminum, which albeit is a little heavy for a handheld, but if you're using it on a table with that spectacular kickstand, it kind of makes sense, because again, the Go really does look and feel more like an all-in-one PC or entertainment system over a handheld. Speaking of that kickstand, just look at it. I know it's just a little metal flap at the back, but kickstands are hard, man. But when you get it right, oh, does it make a product feel so much better. If you're a Microsoft Surface user, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This thing lets you put the Go at almost any angle with no wobbles or fears of it toppling over. I feel like they really went hard on this kickstand. But then there's the other stuff, like the fan. This will probably be a bit polarizing for some of you, but the fan is noisy. Is it noisy enough for you to have to turn the volume up when using it? No. Well, not normally. But is it loud enough that you feel it when playing or hear it when it's idling, sitting at your table? Yeah, it's easily the loudest fan on a handheld out of the bunch I've tested, even at silent power. Not sure if this is just due to the fan they used or if it's providing any real cooling benefit, but it's annoying and plenty of people have also noticed this. Granted, turn the volume up and problem solved, right? Wrong. The speakers are probably the second worst part of the Go. They're top firing, small, quiet, and generally unpleasant to listen to, especially after coming off the sonic blasters on the ROG Ally. This one annoyed me. And yeah, I know, wear headphones. But what if I don't want to? Historically, I've almost always used my handhelds without headphones, so speakers were always an important part of the handheld experience, especially if I'm playing in the comfort of my own house, in my bed, where wearing anything on my head or in my ears is simply annoying. Maybe it's just me, but the speakers on the Go seem like a last-minute addition. As far as the button layout goes, it's better than the Ally in my opinion. They put the volume buttons on the far left side so you can actually reach them, and a power button that lights up to let you know what performance mode you're in. It doesn't have a fingerprint scanner, but for a gaming handheld, I think that's totally okay. You get two USB 4 ports that both support power delivery, which is super convenient, so you can charge while on a table or while using it handheld, so the cable doesn't have to drape over your fingers like that one stubborn piece of hair in the morning. Speaking of charging, the included 65-watt charger does a good job keeping the Go charged while gaming, so you're not constantly at war with what is arguably a short battery life. You guys knew I was going to say that, right? Granted, it's no worse than other handhelds out there, but it's certainly not OLED Steam Deck levels. Video on that soon, so make sure to get subscribed. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention that there is a micro SD slot, but in my experience, it only works sometimes. Better than the Ally, which managed to somehow completely disassemble itself, but man, what is with these handhelds and micro SD slots? I have a 1TB card, and while it does work most of the time, sometimes it either doesn't show up in the file explorer, meaning a lot of my games are just gone, or it shows up but crashes the file explorer when I try to open it, and ultimately I have to restart the Go completely for it to come back to life. Not a fan. So if you're going to get a Go, maybe consider the 1TB internal option, because 512 gigabytes isn't enough for today's games. I'm sure you could pull this thing apart and do all sorts of internal upgrades on the SSD, but I shouldn't have to. All right, let's talk about software and performance. I'll give Lenovo the benefit of the doubt here, because Legion Space, when it came out on launch, was a hot mess. But I'm happy to report that they've completely revamped the parts that I hated. So with that being said, the new layout for the quick access menu is great, mostly. You no longer need to make 4 button presses to pull up the menu, and they moved performance to the top, because that's probably what you'll be doing in here most of the time. They also added some nice hotkeys that allow you to open File Explorer, Task Manager, and the keyboard on the fly, which if you've used Windows on a touchscreen without proper keyboard and mouse, you'll know is super helpful. Not only that, but remember how I said I think the Go is more of an all-in-one PC rather than a handheld? Yeah, there's even a productivity mode that basically tells the Go to automatically set any external display as the primary display and extend the desktop to the built-in monitor, almost because they expect you to use this on a desk rather than in your hands. Now, I'm not even going to talk about the Legion Space app proper, because it's nowhere near as good as SteamOS, and I immediately close it as soon as the Go is powered on, so if that tells you anything, then you'll know how I feel about it. The same goes for Windows 11. I'm trying really hard not to turn this into yet another Windows 11 review on a handheld, because quite frankly, the Windows experience on a handheld touchscreen device has historically never been good. And guess what? It's still not good. So I'll save you the rant and summarize it by saying it works, but don't expect to enjoy your time using it outside of gaming. Anyway, some of you are probably wondering why I haven't even talked about gaming yet, huh? Well, that's because performance is generally dictated by the chip inside the Go, which, as we mentioned, is the AMD Z1 Extreme. And as a result, you could look up almost any benchmarks of games running on the Z1E and get a good idea of how it'll run on the Go. Most of you know by now that I don't do benchmarks here, because quite frankly, those only tell part of the story. What I will say is that I mostly played Cyberpunk and a few other games, and they all ran about as good as they did on the Ally. Now, keep in mind, while the display on the Go is higher res, don't expect to play your games at that higher res, because the Z1E is more tightly tuned for 1080p gaming. But generally speaking, all games run good on the Go, minus a few exceptions, but generally speaking, if you stick to Steam and any of the major launchers, you'll be fine. Worst case, download NVIDIA GeForce Now and just play your games through there if you're having trouble playing them locally. Now, I know I'm overgeneralizing here, but the performance of the Go was never the issue for me. It was the experience. I can't seem to look at the Go as a true gaming handheld, which is what Lenovo sold me. I went in expecting a gaming handheld and ended up with kind of a mess of an entertainment system. It does a lot of things, but it doesn't do any of them particularly well. In my mind, there are a few major things that make a great gaming handheld experience: the physical device, the software, and the performance. For me, the Go only has one of those things: performance. The one thing Lenovo isn't even responsible for. Again, I'm really trying to avoid doing a review of Windows or the Z1E. I'm trying to review the package that Lenovo built around those things, both software and hardware. And when you strip the Go of the Z1E and remove the fact that it runs Windows 11, I'm struggling to see a gaming handheld. I see an all-in-one PC that can game, but is better suited as a small desktop replacement that happens to have a couple of controllers and a built-in screen. It feels half-baked, almost as though Lenovo was really struggling to find a way to stand out so badly that they kind of threw the kitchen sink of ideas at it and targeted it to be this jack-of-all-trades device. Granted, the ROG Ally also runs on Windows and has a lackluster app experience, but the Ally feels like a gaming handheld first and foremost. The controls feel like something ripped right off an Xbox Elite controller. The size and weight lend it to fitting in a bag. It wants to be taken places. It wants to be gamed on. The Go feels like it doesn't want to go anywhere but your tabletop. And that sucks. So to wrap this up a bit, because I know this one got a little messy, I like the Lenovo Go. I like it because it tried something different. I like it because it challenged what a Windows gaming handheld should look like, and I have to commend Lenovo for that. But I'm not sure this is the direction gaming handhelds are trending yet. I think Lenovo is onto something with the Go, but not purely as a gaming device. It's so hard to review this one because it does a lot of things and it can be used in a lot of ways. But in that same vein, that's also its biggest downfall. The Go gets in the way of itself more often than not. And for me personally, it's too busy of a device for me to want to pick it up and use it over, say, the Steam Deck. A lot of the cool gimmicks are annoying to use, or at best, are party tricks that you show your friends once. But realistically, the only way I want to use the Go is as a handheld. And unfortunately, it just doesn't hit the mark for me. But what do you think? That's going to be it for this one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button. And as always, make sure to subscribe to see more content like this. You can follow me on X, TikTok, and Instagram at XXIV_concept. That's 24concept. Learn your Roman numerals. All right. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. What if I just sat here silently for like an hour? Like, what if this video was like an hour and 15 minutes or whatever? 15 of those minutes is like the actual video, and then like the next hour is just... You couldn't take me in a staring contest. I have no soul.